Dionne Davenport's Hyperfemininity in Clueless is subversive. The mere existence of Black femininity, let alone hyperfemininity, can be a tool and a source of protection. It can also be a trap. Let's talk about it in the story of Black womanhood that this film in particular offers up for us. But let's start by reviewing the basics. Before Dionne and long after Dionne, the imagery of Black women in media works on multiple levels. As we have discussed, it almost always reveals whoever's telling the story and their idea of the woman in particular's worth or value. If you study history long enough, you start to realize that a lot of the wealth in the USA was predicated on access to Black female bodies. This accumulation of wealth was gathered through forced ownership of Black women and their wombs. The first Middle Passage was the stage that described the African people who had been enslaved and them being deposited in the Americas after they'd done their whole journey. Do you want to know what they call the second Middle Passage? Black women's wombs. Their forced impregnations and births kept the whole trade alive, and they kept this ability to keep reproducing enslaved people after the slave trade got clamped down. It was critical to the people making bank off of this system that this economic supply and this resource not ever be threatened. So guess what? You couldn't risk humanizing these women, because if you saw them as ladies, you might have to treat them as such. If they were soft, they couldn't be abused. If you took their anger or their pain seriously, you would have to admit that they were people like you. So from the beginning of Black women being dragged here, we needed cultural stories to justify this and protect the system. One of the overarching stories that we see throughout time is Black women aren't like other women. They are harder, they are tougher, they are that strong Black woman trope that can take anything. They aren't princesses who need protection or care or honor. They weren't depicted as the center of romantic desire, which I need to note is very different from the fetishization of their stage or this desire to have a non-consensual power differential in a relationship with a Black woman. Now, let me be clear, Black women have always been desirable. But what people were allowed to do legally to Black women that they desired or wanted, and what Black women themselves were allowed to give themselves to have a soft life, that's always been hotly debated in the courts. You don't have to respect people that you believe are hard, animal-like, and super tough, and just built for pain. Now, let's get some empathy here for a second. Imagine what it must have been like to be enslaved and not have, I know there was tons of other issues you were dealing with, but you know how you feel when you can't do a wash day, when your hair is feeling really bad and you just want it clean. These women had been dragged out of their communities, and now they didn't even have the time or the resources to take care of themselves. They couldn't wear things that brought them joy. They didn't have the resources to stay clean in the ways they wanted to. Femininity, care, and rest was denied to these women specifically on the basis of their Blackness. That kind of generational cultural trauma is underappreciated in the United States. I remember when I went to boarding school, I met this other Black girl who was religious about layering her scents and her skincare. Like, you could tell that she had been in the music building because you could smell her. Her mom had told her what my mom had told me before I left, which is you can't ever smell bad. You need to bathe every single day. This nonsense where you kind of skip some days or you're not smelling fresh, that's not for you. The Black girls at this boarding school, they had their hair braided, they had their hair pressed, they had a regimen in place, and they smelled amazing. There was this shared understanding that how we presented ourselves and how we took care of ourselves was no small thing. How does Dionne present herself? The first visual clues would be the manicures, so let's take a look. I want you to know that just in any scene, she has nails that would not be good for gardening, they would not be good for cooking, they would not be good for cleaning. She has different sets at different times, so she's changing them out, and they are always flawless. This is a girl with leisure time and money to sit us at a salon and get them done. This also extends to the makeup. I know if you've seen shows like The Summer I Turned Pretty or other teen shows, there's a very natural, no glam look. Like they just woke up and they look this pretty. We never get that with Dionne. We always get this soft glam, this I woke up and I put effort and time into my look. This is clearly time consuming, and she is a high school student. Her lashes look like they're done softly. She is switching out her lipsticks to match the different outfits. Her eyeshadow palette is clearly a bit more complicated than the average one shot and you're done. She is clearly taking time to lay out her outfits the night before and complement her makeup to match. I don't think she's spending her early mornings or her evenings cooking for herself, cleaning up after herself, or doing 10 million chores. As someone who has seen so many movies of Black women suffering, struggling, barely holding on, their hair everywhere, this is really refreshing. She's comfortable and she's living a good life. She isn't pretending to be someone else to be free. She's not in danger. She's just enjoying the fruits of her parents' labor. Similarly, with the hair, we are seeing someone who has a lot of time and privilege to sit at the salon and get her hair braided. They look fresh. They're in different styles. She clearly is getting treatments and services on a regular basis. This is immediately also brought up in one of the very first major scenes with her when she accuses her boyfriend of, messing around with somebody else. And she presents this hair extension. And he's like, that's yours. And she loses it because she would never be caught with a cheap Kmart hair extension. Everyone knows she doesn't use polyester. She has preferences. She has the privilege to have developed a taste. And she's not afraid to stand on that. The hair extension in question looks very ratty and disheveled compared to her. In this scene, the filmmakers have her holding it out, and she is in her glossy little hat, her little outfit. She's looking very pulled together. She is a Black woman with time. She is not some kind of black bull bumbling around in this china shop, doesn't have any idea how she got here. Oh, she's so lucky to be here. Nope. She is a Black, fabulous, privileged girl who can more than afford to meet the standards she has developed with her taste. I've talked about this before, but it's always good to remember that in the 1950s and during the early Cold War period, it was a choice on the part of studio executives and just studios in general to not ever show upper class Black people on TV. This was not the legal reality or the picture of America that the American society wanted to produce or show to anybody. If Dionne's parents were even 50 years old the time this movie came out, they would have been alive during that legal reality. Every single person knows somebody who grew up in that time period. And there is this inability on our part as a society to accept the fact that for the longest time, Blackness was coded as criminal, ugly, and disgusting. One of you pointed out somewhere that Dionne doesn't let the clothes wear her. She's wearing the clothes. She looks gorgeous and confident in every outfit. They're flamboyant, they're chic, she wants to be seen. She's okay with being seen. She's super confident in being seen. This is her home. This is her place. She doesn't just wear a cap. She wears a crown that's flamboyant and vibrant. She's sexy and cute because she has this confidence that no one's taking advantage of her and her body. And if they do, her parents will sue them to high heavens. The vibe we get from her, princess, protected, cherished, treasured. These clothes are not her costume. She's not cosplaying for acceptance. This is who she is. She is the center. She's the one to be emulated. She's the desirable one. We could totally see her in 2022 rocking a Gucci tiara. Now, she's not doing this because she's Black. She's doing this because this is what the girls in her status, her area of life do. Hyperfemininity is a style. It requires intention, like any other trend. Why is it so particularly hated and derided among Black content creators? First, that intentionality and female agency in choosing to look like that can trigger people who are insecure about their class or they're insecure about their manhood. Because behind the hate is this question, who do you think you are? How dare you deviate from the standard of beauty I have in my own head? If you celebrate your Blackness and happiness, what does that mean to my self-worth, which is predicated on you thinking of yourself as less? And how dare you be more human than I'm comfortable with? If you are pretty and soft and tender, how do I justify fetishing you or abusing you in online contexts? This agency rattles people who can no longer own us physically, but seek to own us psychologically and mentally so that they can stay comfortable. Hyperfeminine Black women, especially those that take pictures of themselves and post them, are literally adding and injecting to the culture a new story and new images about what Blackness looks like. So I thought I could fit 25 more points into this 10-minute video, and I just can't. So why don't we just admire my Oscar de la Renta Barbie earrings? I love them. So I'll end here by just asking you a question. It doesn't have to be about hyperfemininity. What style have you and you could be anybody. Anyone can answer this. What style have you adopted? Because it works with you, who you are, what you want to be, what you want to communicate to the world. And what changed when you started unapologetically living that out? I would love to know. And see you tomorrow because we have more to talk about.